Yo, what's up gamers? So I walked into the break room and somebody left a video playing on the TV with just endless space. Planets stretching forever, creatures walking around like they actually belong there, and I'm standing there like, hold up, this is a game? Because if it is, this might be the most insane thing I've ever seen. Except the version people actually got back in the day was nothing like this. And yeah, people noticed. So if you like these deep dives into gaming's biggest messes, do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe. I'm in here cleaning this stuff every week because what happened with this game wasn't just a bad launch, it was a promise that got completely out of control. A hype train that went off the rails in front of the entire industry, turning to one of the most dramatic stories in modern gaming. And the deeper you dig into it, the weirder it gets. So grab a mop, we're diving right into the Janitor Files No Man's Sky, the game that promised everything, Episode 11. So let's get into this. So what exactly is No Man's Sky? At its core, it's an open-world space exploration game where you play as a lone traveler dropped into a massive, procedurally generated universe. We're talking 18 quintillion planets. That's 18 followed by 18 zeros. Every single one completely unique, generated on the fly with pure math and code. No two planets are ever the same. You get wildly different terrain, exotic plants, dramatic weather patterns, and the skies that actually change depending on the star the planet orbits. You can fly seamlessly from deep space all the way down to the planet's surface with no loading screen whatsoever. Land literally anywhere, step out of your ship, and just start walking into the unknown. You discover strange alien creatures, scan them, name them, upload your findings to the community. You gather resources, craft upgrades for your ship and suit, survive harsh environments that can literally kill you, trade with alien species at outposts, and jump into space combat if you feel like it. It's that pure classic sci-fi explorer fantasy. You versus the unknown galaxy. No hand-holding, no main quest railroading you forward, just pure freedom, you make your own journey. But here's what makes this whole story hit different. This game wasn't made by some massive AAA studio with hundreds of developers and unlimited money. Hello Games is a tiny British indie studio based in Guildford, Surrey. They were founded back in 2008 by just 4 friends, Sean Murray and 3 of his close buddies. Sean had previously worked at big studios like Criterion Games, where he was a lead programmer on the Burnout series. He eventually got completely burnt out on the big studio life, the constant pressure of churning out sequels, the corporate cycle, and the lack of real creative freedom. Their first game was Joe Danger, a fun, colorful stunt bike racer that became a surprise hit for such a small team. It sold decently, won awards, and proved they could actually deliver a polished game on a tiny budget. But while working on Joe Danger 2, Sean had what's described as kind of a midlife crisis. He realized he didn't want to spend the rest of his career just making more sequels. Instead, he wanted to chase his childhood dream he'd carried since he was a little kid, the feeling of stepping out of a spaceship onto an alien planet for the very first time. The pure sense of wonder, discovery, and loneliness. He drew heavy inspiration from 1970s and 80s sci-fi books, along with classic space games like Elite, Star Control 2, and Freelancer. So this tiny team, usually just 4 to 6 people for most of the development, only peaking at around 15 by the time the game launched, decided they were going to build an entire universe from scratch using advanced procedurally generation techniques. They were groundbreaking for a studio their size, and remember, this wasn't a massive studio with endless resources. This was a handful of passionate developers trying to build an entire infinite universe, and somehow, they convinced everyone they actually pulled it off. So back in 2013 and 2014, Hello Games started showing off No Man's Sky, and the hype was absolutely nuclear. They first teased it at the VGX Awards in late 2013, but it was the E3 2014 trailer that completely broke the internet. That trailer looked straight up magical. Lush alien worlds with vibrant colors, seamless flight from deep space all the way down to the planet's surface with 0 loading screens. You could literally land anywhere you wanted. No boundaries, the trailer showed living, breathing ecosystems, giant creatures knocking down trees as they walked, herds of animals migrating across plains, weird alien beasts with what looked like realistic behaviors and interactions. It didn't feel like random assets thrown together, it looked like a real dynamic living world. Exploration, survival, resource gathering, trading with alien factions, and intense space combat. It was all supposed to be there in one giant sandbox. And then there was the multiplayer part that got people especially hyped. Sean Murray and the team strongly implied that in this gigantic universe, if your paths ever crossed with another player, you could actually see them. Discoveries you made, uploading creatures or planets, would be shared with the entire community. They sold this pure vision of freedom, no hand-holding, no linear story forcing you down a specific path. Just you, your ship, and an infinite galaxy waiting to be explored by your own terms. This wasn't just a game, this was supposed to be an infinite universe. Everything was unique, everything was alive, everything was discoverable. Sony pushed it extremely hard as their big PS4 indie showcase. Trailers like I've Seen Things made the whole thing feel magical and emotional. For nearly 2 full years, the hype kept building and building. And by the time 2016 rolled around, expectations were through the roof. People were calling it a potential Game of the Year contender before it even launched. They sold us pure wonder, that childhood sci-fi dream of being a real explorer turned real. But the version people downloaded in 2016 told a different story. Now fast forward to August 2016. No Man's Sky finally launches on PlayStation 4 on August 9th and on PC on August 12th. At first, it actually looks stunning for a lot of players. You drop into your first planet, the colors pop, the procedural generation spits out some genuinely beautiful alien landscapes, the soundtrack swells, and for those last few hours you're flying around completely hooked. You're thinking, wow, this scale is real. The universe feels massive. Some people were generally impressed by the sheer size and the sense of being somewhere truly unknown. But the longer you played, the more the cracks started showing. The deeper you went, the clearer it became. This wasn't the infinite living universe they had been selling us for years. There was no multiplayer at all. The game was completely solo. No running into other players, no seeing their discoveries, none of that shared galaxy feeling they had implied in interviews and trailers. You were alone in this giant universe. Plant variety turned out to be way more limited than what the trailers promised. After exploring just a handful of worlds, a lot of them started feeling samey. Similar mountain shapes, the same basic rock formations, repeating plant types and color palettes that looped over and over. The creatures existed, but their behaviors were super basic. Most of them just wandered in circles or stood still. There was no complex ecosystems, no giant beasts knocking down trees, no herds interacting like they showed in the hype videos. Exploration that felt fresh and exciting in the beginning quickly turned repetitive. You'd scan the same few creatures types again and again, mine the same resources, and after 10 to 15 hours, a lot of players hit a hard wall. There was no base building, no vehicles like exocraft, no freighters, no real story or deep purpose beyond just walking around. The survival and crafting systems also felt like a shallow grind with not enough gameplay loops to keep it interesting long term. And then there was this ultimate challenge that the game pushed players toward, the journey to the center of the galaxy. But after dozens or even hundreds of hours of warping across the stars, many players finally reached it, only to be met with a short cutscene, a brief lore dump, and then being dropped into a new galaxy that played almost exactly like the last one. No unique reward, no meaningful change, no climactic payoff. It felt like the final punchline to the promise, an infinite universe with no destination worth reaching. The universe was infinite, but it didn't feel alive. It wasn't broken in the traditional sense. The game worked. You could play it. You could fly around and discover stuff, but it wasn't what people thought they were getting. The gap between the promise and the reality was massive, and that's when the internet started asking a question. What exactly were we sold? That was the question echoing across the internet just days after launch. At first, the game sold pretty well, but once people got past those first few hours, the disappointment hit hard and fast. Reddit exploded with massive missing features threads. People started making detailed side-by-side videos comparing the 2014 and 2015 trailers to the actual game. Old Sean Murray interview clips started resurfacing everywhere, the ones where he talked about seeing other players, dynamic ecosystems, and all the features that just weren't there. Players felt genuinely misled. Accusations of lying and false advertising spread like wildfire. Some called it one of the biggest cases of hype backlash in gaming history. And it got ugly. Steam refund waves kicked in hard, especially on PC. Review scores tanked, then things turned dark. Sean Murray and the team started receiving threats and serious harassment. It got so bad that the studio had to pull back from the public entirely. On top of all of that, the UK's Advertising Standards Authority even opened an official investigation into whether the marketing and Steam page were misleading. The small indie team that had been hyped up for years suddenly found themselves at the center of a storm. This wasn't just Backlash, this turned into a mystery. Instead of defending themselves, they disappeared. The studio went completely silent. No big statements, no apologies, no big developer updates, just radio silence, because then something weird happened. Months passed with almost no communication. No big apologies, no live streams, nothing. Then in November 2016, they dropped the first major update called Foundation. And that's when things slowly started to change. They didn't fix it overnight, they fixed it piece by piece. Quietly, consistently, year after year. And eventually, people didn't just notice, they started coming back in droves. Hello Games kept their promise the only way that actually matters. Through consistent, free action over nearly a decade, they've delivered more than 40 major named updates, plus hundreds of smaller patches, all completely free, no paid DLC ever. Foundation, that came out November 2016, gave players base building for the first time. You could finally claim land, construct homes, and recruit NPCs to run terminals. They added freighters you could own and customize, plus new modes like survival and creative. Pathfinder, which dropped on March 2017, introduced Exocraft, land vehicles that let you drive across planets. Base sharing also came online, along with more ship and weapon variety. Atlas Rises dropped August 2017, added a brand new story campaign with the Artemis Path, portals for fast travel, a procedural mission system, and the first scale multiplayer tests. Then when Next dropped on July 2018, this was the game changer. Full multiplayer finally arrived. You could see and play with others in the same universe, build bases together, trade, fight, and explore as a group. They added third-person view, huge graphical upgrades, better space combat, fleets of ships, and massive overhauls to almost every system. And then Beyond dropped August 2019, pushed it even further with major VR support, expanded multiplayer, and what many call the true No Man's Sky 2.0. After that, the updates just kept coming, each one layering on even more depth. Origins, that dropped in 2020, dramatically improved planet variety and biomes. Companions let you tame and raise creatures as pets. Then Frontiers dropped in 2021, added full settlements with NPCs you could manage and help grow. Then Sentinels, Outlaws, and Endurance and others brought better combat, pirate systems, and massive capital ship customization. Worlds Part 1 and 2 in 2025 delivered huge terrain, biome, and weather overhauls. Voyagers came after that in the same year and added custom shipbuilding and some of the highest player spikes the game had ever seen. Even in 2026, updates like Remnant continue adding creature battling arenas, genetic experiments, and fresh content. Today, No Man's Sky has sold over 10 million copies. Player counts regularly explode with every update, hitting peaks over 100,000 concurrent on Steam alone, sometimes higher than the original launch week. The average daily players sit comfortably around 1.5 million across platforms. It's won multiple Best Ongoing Game Awards at the Game Awards and earned a BAFTA for Best Evolving Game in 2026. A full decade after painful launch, players' trust that was shattered back in 2016 has slowly been rebuilt, one meaningful update at a time. The community that once roasted the game now defends it fiercely. What started as a punchline became a respected living universe. The game people wanted in 2016 finally existed years later. Not because they rewrote history or made excuses, but because they kept working quietly, honestly, patiently, and that's what makes this one so special. And that's the story of No Man's Sky. That beautiful version I saw playing on the TV in the break room wasn't fake, it just wasn't finished. Hello Games didn't scam anybody, they didn't set out to lie. This wasn't some cynical cash grab, it was just a tiny team of passionate developers chasing a genuine childhood dream, trying to build something massive and original when the entire industry told them it couldn't be done with their size and resources. The real problem, the ambition completely outran reality, and the hype got totally out of control. Sony pushed it hard, trailers looked incredible, interviews painted this perfect picture, and millions of people bought into the dream before the game was ready. The gap between promise and launch created one of the biggest disappointments in modern gaming, but here's what actually matters. This is what happens when ambition outruns reality, and what it takes to fix it. Instead of running away or making excuses, Hello Games stayed quiet, rolled up their sleeves, and spent nearly 10 years quietly making the game better. One free update at a time. No paid DLC, no abandoning the project, just consistent, patient work. And because of that, they earned one of the greatest redemption arcs gaming has ever seen. Well, that's all I have. I gotta bounce. I gotta go turn off that TV in the break room before the next hype trailer starts looping again and gets me hyped for a game that doesn't exist yet. But before I go, do me a favor. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe for more Janitor files, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And now here's my real question for you to drop down in the comments below. Does a massive comeback like this erase a bad launch? Or should that painful first impression always matter? This is Scruffy the Janitor signing off. Peace out.